I want to talk about 5 easy ways to restore your peace if you are already a spiritual person. Because these methods will be for people that are kind of already on board with the idea of connecting to a higher presence, a higher awareness, and a spiritual self. And for me, being situated in peace is a good way to describe how I feel when I am the most spiritually connected. And the methods that I'm going to share with you today are gathered from both personal experience as well as religious methods that I'm seeing over and over again within different bodies of teaching. Um, I won't go into the engineering of how this works because that could be a study for a lifetime. But like I said, this also comes from personal experience, so it's self-evident to me as the truth. So if you are a spiritual person, you probably already know all of these, but if you've been on the path a while, you know that we need reminders. We need kind of life rafts thrown out to us to pull us back from the storm that we get caught up in over and over. So, the 5 methods that I have for you to restore your peace, to restore your connection to your spirit consciousness. The first one is the most powerful one, prayer of surrender. This is especially useful if you are in crisis, and that's kind of why I put it first, because I feel like if you're looking for ways to restore peace, you may not just be doing maintenance research on life. You may be in crisis and already feel overwhelmed in this moment. So the most powerful one is the prayer of surrender, and a lot of people come to this naturally when they are in crisis, when they're in a deep, intense phase of suffering, when they're in pain, when they feel completely overwhelmed, bewildered. They don't know how they got into the situation that they're in. They're desperate. They are flailing. So, the prayer of surrender is when you realize that your way of doing things, your priorities, your perceptions, what you've decided is complete and full reality, that it has some flaws, that it's not the complete reality, that chasing different pursuits haven't turned out the way that you thought they would, that a lot of joy has turned into pain, and there's been a lot of loss of things that you expected to be permanent. And this surrender is to give over your decisions, your life, to God, to say to God, you know what is best for me. I give my life over to you. Please instruct me because I realize that I do not know the way. The prayer of surrender needs to be genuine. It needs to be a sincere giving over of your will, of your life, to listening to what does God want for me? What does my spirit consciousness dictate for me? And am I following that? So the prayer of surrender is the first method. It's very easy. You can do it at any moment. It simply takes an act of sincere and earnest speaking from your heart to the Supreme God and saying, your will, not mine. The second method that I have is intelligent acts of kindness performed without expectation of recognition or reward. So this could be anything really. It can be listening attentively to someone who needs an ear. It can be picking up garbage that someone left behind. It can be anything that comes from your mode of goodness. to relieve the distress of someone, to give charity to someone, to just be a beacon of goodness in the world, to consciously put your effort into an act of kindness and compassion. It's great for the energy, it's great for your vibe, it's great for how you feel, and it benefits other people too. It's a wonderful way to just get back in touch with your true self, your spirit self, by doing an action of your spirit essence, benevolence and kindness, humility. The third method I have is what you could call fasting spiritually, abstaining from things like junk entertainment, gossip, sensational headlines, all the things that kind of flood our awareness if we're, checking our devices or reading the news in the morning or gossiping about whatever's going on in celebrity culture. Fast from these foods, because food isn't just what you put in your mouth to feed your body. Food is what you listen to. Food is what you look at and take in visually. Food is all the energetic essences of your environment, and specifically what you give your attention to. So fast spiritually and take a break. Don't overwhelm yourself with a sense of, I have to completely give up, say, my Facebook page or something, but maybe just take a break. Something like that, to abstain from a regular input of just junk food. The fourth method for restoring your peace is an act of discipline. Give up something in order to sacrifice your moment of comfort, say, to the service of God, to the service of the supreme law, the law of nature, the law of oneness. An example of an act of discipline would be like waking up 30 minutes early in order to have some quiet solitude for meditation. Maybe read a book that nourishes you spiritually, raises your knowledge in something. Use that discipline, whatever you're giving up in the matter of an indulgence or a comfort, replace it with something that grounds you in your spirit consciousness. The fifth method for restoring your peace: worship or glorify. Bring spirit consciousness into your everyday mundane activities. Bring that essence into your work, into the errands that you run, the little exchanges that you have with people. Hold your state of peace and transmit it through your words, through your actions. And be aware of that's all spirit awareness is being more aware and not being locked into the lower ego consciousness, but being aware of your reactions to things and being, present enough to have non-reaction when that's more appropriate. To glorify means to bring to light. So in a way, it's like letting God's essence come through you as your human being life and bringing it into the light of the world, into the reality of the world. So remember that emotions are like messengers and they have a purpose. They're bringing subtle realities to our awareness. Now, extreme emotions that disturb us so much that we feel mentally unsteady and overwhelmed, those kind of emotions usually come from perceptions not of the spirit consciousness, but of the ego consciousness or the material consciousness, the false self. The spirit knows the transient nature of material reality and everything in it, the transient nature of every activity, every happiness, every creation, every accomplishment, every relationship, and every identity in this material world. It's annihilated with time, and all that is here is meant to come and go. The spirit knows this, and thus, when we are rooted internally in our spirit consciousness, We aren't tempted to be excessively attached to the material activities or to the ego's identity, the ego's sense of being miserable. The emotions are messengers, and so misery and suffering are speaking to you. The message cannot be received by the egoic mind. The false self, or our worldly human personality, only uses the emotions to strengthen itself and to solidify its illusions of reality. When we get resituated in peace and reconnected to God, the spirit consciousness can observe the emotions and perceive the messages which inform us of our current energy, usually our thought energy. And thoughts are very sneaky about running automatically in the background. And these thoughts are rendering judgments on what we see happening around us, and they're rendering judgments on what's happening inside of us. These sneaky thoughts are building up an emotional energy as a response to the sense of danger or threat, which is being created by these thoughts that are running in the background. So where is your mind focused? Is it distracted, scattered, busy, hopping around, restless? Is it dull and checked out? Awareness and presence are key to mastering the inner space of the mind so that you can catch the thoughts of the mind when it is the ego's voice narrating. And then you can recognize that it is not you. It's not your spirit. When you observe it and don't identify with it, you don't get pulled into the story that it's telling, because it loves to be a victim. It loves to hide from the truth in the details and in the drama, and it is clever. So it takes spiritual presence to be able to transcend this identifying with the ego and getting lost in the illusion of misery. These methods for restoring inner peace are ways of reconnecting to the spirit consciousness by returning to awareness of our true spiritual being, which naturally occurs when we get back in harmony with our life purpose, which is to live in devotion to spiritual laws. The arguments against the existence of karma don't hold up outside the limited material conception of reality, where all cause and effect transactions take place in plain sight, materially, and take place all in one lifetime. That's usually the argument that you hear when people say that they don't believe in karma, because you see basically terrible people living materially luxurious lives. Only in Pinocchio is karma that apparent and immediate. You remember the movie Pinocchio? Foolish at first, Pinocchio learns through making mistakes and suffering. Pleasure Island, as we saw in Pinocchio, will turn one into an ass. Pleasure Island represents the following of the sense gratifications and not listening to the conscience. You're supposed to listen to your father, you're supposed to listen to your conscience. These are the main morals of the story of Pinocchio. That the ass becomes a slave is another. This life is a chance to become spiritually conscious and self-realized, to become disenslaved by the lesser consciousness of the material or ego personality, to learn better than to keep going back to Pleasure Island and turning into an ass. It becomes clear when we get back into alignment with our purpose. And from that deep, unwavering peace, we immediately release the quarrels of the Kali Yuga mentalities. So, pray a sincere prayer of surrender to the Supreme. Act generously upon your inspiration to give a kindness or to relieve someone's distress, and act within your reach. You have probably friends, relatives, a spouse, children, coworkers. You already have relationships that you can give kindness to. And if you have an aversion to being kind to a particular person, you may actually want to target that person for some sincere kindness because it will do you a lot of good. Abstain from garbage for a while at least. Feed yourself good energy, visually, like taking a walk in nature, auditorily, such as singing or listening to mantras and chanting, intellectually, with a spiritual lecture and teachings. Tune into anything with God's essence flowing through it. Perform a sacrifice. Give up some small indulgence or material comfort in order to show your intentions and to spiritualize your energy. Use the act to simultaneously choose peace, God, and soul over body pleasures and addiction to busy-mindedness. And lastly, glorify. Glorify this eternal truth by holding your peace and transmitting it through all your activities in the world. When you next smile at someone, do it while knowing the true spiritual living essence that you both share. And that living knowledge will be transmitted energetically, benefiting everyone. Peace be with you.